Hello, hello. Welcome in, my bees. My name is Lauren B. Welcome to Wild March Tarot, or whatever the heck we are calling this channel this week. I had someone leave me a comment a couple days ago, like, why do you keep changing your channel names? And I said, because I'm having an identity crisis. Duh. But today we're not here to talk about me and my identity crisis. Today we are here we're here to talk about tarot, and we're here to talk about the goddesses, and we're here to talk about the undying magical force that exists within you, because it's Monday. And so that's what we're going to talk about. I have a singular message which butterflies out into a longer conversation. As we know, ever since my practice became much more highly feminized, we keep calling these downloads that I am receiving the agenda, and the downloads that I receive go in a little list called the agenda, and then we sit down once a week and we go through our bullet points, which is a very funny corporate way to do this work. I'm aware. But today, what is on the agenda? I feel kind of a little bit let me put this golf ball down and I'll explain to you why I even have it. So I woke up this morning and it was very clear that I had a little bit of a message for you. I wrote it down last night, but I woke up and I felt very tired. I felt also kind of a little bit silly goose energy. I want to say that it feels like you guys maybe need to play a little bit of hooky. You might be tired. You might be kind of burning the candle at both ends. And sometimes when that happens, you can get really bogged down and grumpy, right? A little burnt out. But sometimes you can just take a ticket to the funny farm, and you just start losing grip of reality. So some of you might need a little, it's like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You might need a Ferris Bueller's Day Off day where you say, you know what? I'm sick, and then you just go do something, or you have a nap, or you just take a little time to yourself, because I see you I see someone putting on glasses. What I heard was bifocals. It's just okay. I see someone putting on their bifocals and then taking them off and not being able to absorb the information that's on the page. When you read a paragraph over and over again and you're still not absorbing the information, it's because you're just shot to shit, babe. You need a day off. You need to relax. And there's something here about don't be so prideful and have so much ego and hubris that you think the world can't spin the day without you. It will be okay. I'll get on just fine. Please go have a snack and go take a little walk around the neighborhood, or go get your nails done, or go stare at the clouds, or go have a hot date with a flying spaghetti monster. Go do something. Because it just feels like you're not gonna grasp nothing until you just take a little you time. Is there anything else I wanted to come through there? It's very funny. They're also I don't know what they're showing me. Adam's Family. They're showing me Adam Sandler movies, which is something that I always associate with a sick day, or I'm taking a me day. So they're showing me Big Daddy, but they're showing me Happy Gilmore, and they're showing me Billy Madison, and there's an emphasis on Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison, and how those are kind of failure to launch stories about this grown-ass man who has to you know what, I need to get my shit together, and then he goes back to school, or he goes back to law school, and he tries to get, you've seen the movies. I hope if you haven't, that's something you should do today. So I'm wondering if you are very much in a circumstance, like a lot of people, where you feel like you're behind, and you feel a little bit like you're a failure to launch, and you are probably almost metaphorically or literally killing yourself to get ahead, or the impression is to even break even. And the sentiment is, okay, we get it, we're gonna work on it, but your best ideas aren't gonna come when you're white knuckling life. And if you know, in those movies, at the end of the day, Adam Sandler did get his shit together. The world did finally see him as a grown-up. Everyone did consider him a productive member of society. You must be, whoever this is, you must be millennials, because Gen Zs don't have this problem. And the boomers don't either. It's just this I feel it in the air. Someone who's in their 30s, I'm this smells like millennial trauma all over the place. But at the end of the day, Adam Sandler, he got his shit together. He grew up, it's fine. it's all gonna work out. So just know that in your head. It's like at the end of the day, like you will feel like a functional adult one day. Like it's gonna be fine. But in the meantime, again, maybe we play hooky. Maybe we take our Ferris Bueller's Day Off day. Like maybe we fuck around just a little bit within safe parameters. But please, for the love of God. Now, in regards to the agenda, the message that I received last night, it was quite simple. And the message was, and they're saying Juno, usually when I get like the agenda or very specific messages like that, they often come forward like through Juno as almost like the head of house in terms of like a lot of my messages. But Hecate has also been very active over the last few days, and I expect her to continue to be super active as we come up to this full moon at the end of this week. But the agenda message was clear, and it was called Set the Standard. Lauren, go and tell them to set the standard for themselves and stick to it. And there's a few things in this message. One, part of the issue some of you guys are having with consistency, with confusion, it is actually a problem of accountability. Sometimes action begets information. The action teaches you where the errors are, when you need to bend around the curve, what you need, what you don't need, what wasn't necessary to even begin with. A lot of you are being very stagnant and you're using confusion as the reason for your stagnancy, which again, it makes a lot of sense. But what it actually is a lack of accountability, meaning that you may say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Maybe you do it one day or a couple days, but then you start slipping, and then next thing you know, half of, you're not even doing B anymore, it's just A, and you're only doing C like half the time, right? And then we're not seeing results, and then we're getting upset. That is like an accountability and a consistency problem. That is not a magic problem. That is not a divine support problem. That's a you problem, baby, right? And it has to do with setting a standard for yourself. What you do, what you don't do, when you show up, how you show up, regardless, and this is a big thing, regardless of what other people are or are not doing. Because the impression that came through was that a lot of you know what you're supposed to be doing, but you might not be doing it because you're feeling some type of way about other people not doing their part. And the acknowledgement is, we see that other people aren't doing their part. We see that so-and-so isn't stepping up to the plate. I know that someone isn't meeting you halfway, that they're giving you the short end of the stick. There's a feeling here of like, we're not stupid. Like, we see that it's happening, but it's not about them or the person that's bothering you or the person that you think's in your way. It's about whether you can still do what is required of you, what you said you were going to do, what you said you wanted to do, what you know is expected of you, regardless of who is showing up and who is not. There's a confidence issue the way it wants to be communicated, and a lot of that confidence issue, it comes from not showing up for yourself consistently in the way that is asked of you, kind of by the divine, and in a way that you have also kind of asked for yourself. So that breeds like a certain amount of contempt for self, that if you're not very much aware of it, it's easy to project that on to people around you about like what they're not doing. And again, there's an acknowledgement of, hey, we recognize not everyone around you is doing what they're supposed to be doing, but your blessings are not predicated or dependent on what other people aren't doing. It's like just a reminder, like you're graded on your own homework. You move through your breakthroughs, your karma, your initiations, your blockages as an individual. You have an individual team, you have an individual life path, you have individual magics and healings and a variety of different like work that is before you, both in spirit and in the natural world. And that's what you need to be focusing on. So if there are any areas of your life where you may be using other people's lack of attendance or effort as an excuse for you to enable your own half-assing, basically, that's not going to work for you. Just like this is the way it comes through. It's like, that's not going to work either. Like, just because they're not doing their homework doesn't mean that like you aren't still going to have to take your own pop test. So like, just make sure you're on top of it. And the most important part of this is about, and it's not a lot of you are going to like this, because I didn't like it when when I heard it either. But it's closing the hypocrisy gap is what I heard, is that there may be, and we all do this, but I think there's something here about, and again, it comes from the divine mothers of like, no, actually, let's show them how it's done. Let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's put our cute little boots to the grindstone, right? And so instead of complaining of what other people aren't doing, we're just gonna do what is required, because that's what we do. We get the job done, right? We're not going to complain that this business shouldn't be doing that, and that celebrity shouldn't be doing this, and this person over here that we work with at the water cooler, they're doing X, Y, and Z, and don't we have feelings about that? Like, what are we doing? In a lot of ways, it's people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. A lot of it is potentially like criticizing just like different things. I mean, it's 2024. We have the internet. Like, everyone has 2 pennies, 2 cents, an opinion, a Substack. Everyone's got everything, right? And so I think that there is something here of like, okay, like, talk your shit, but like, make sure you're not doing the same thing in some other little corner of your life that you're not aware of, because you probably are, right? And if you are not aware of that, then you're yapping, right? You're critiquing something that like you're also doing, and that can build like contentment within the self, because the subconscious is aware of it, even if consciously like you are not. And so there's something here about like, let's not talk about narcissists, let's not talk about hypocrites, let's not talk about manipulative people, let's not talk about exploitative people, let's not talk about that until we make sure that we're also not participating in it, right? There's something about I am who I say I am. I do what I say I'm gonna do. There's something about, and it's almost like what comes through is like, you're so close, we just kind of want to push you a little bit, and almost a feeling of remind you that people are counting on you, that actually people expect things of you, and it's not to be, the way it comes through is it's not to be the chosen one, it's not to save the family name, it's not to do this, it's to be a integral, decent human being that you were like born to be, right? You were born to be more than like a shit talker. You were born to be more than whatever. And so there's something about that, and again, it feels like it comes from the feminine energies, it comes from more of like the divine mothers, and it's not, and there's a smirk in it. It's like, we're not really trying to rag on you, but it's like you keep talking about, again, someone at work, or you keep talking about this, or you keep talking about that, but like I also see you doing it too. So like, let's close the hypocrisy gap, let's close the imposter gap. And through October and November in the Patreon, through a lot of the monthly readings, we were talking about closing a variety of gaps, right? Then a lot of it was information gaps that were being closed. Now it feels like action gaps is what is important now. And I say that because I also pulled out some of my charms. If you've been here for a while and you remember like the Lauren's Lots days, I have my charms, and a few of the things that had come out was, one, I thought this was interesting. It's the sticker of this hiker going actually down the mountainscape. So if, again, you have been burnt out, if you've been burning the candle at both ends, if you've been confused, just like a lot of tension, even just like if the astrology and the collective energy has been really like rough and tumble on you, and a lot of you have been going through like initiations as well, feels like that intensity is going to start to wane, and things should start to smooth out, and we will eventually be coming out of, the Mercury and the Mars retrograde, and life's like the elevator business, but things should start to smooth out a little bit for you. What's interesting is it landed on top of another sticker, and this one is a cauldron and it's upside down. I thought this was interesting because it feels like right now it's more about practical steps and actions, practical observation, more so than it is about magical workings or conjurings. This is not an excuse to like fall off your rituals. Take your spiritual baths. If you plan to do something for the full moon, do it. There's also Apollo has been coming up a lot in the channel as an association of the sun. I'm getting the impression that a lot of you are due for your yearly offerings, meaning that you might not do like consistent deity or spiritual or ancestral work. Like, you might not feed your house spirits every day like I do. You might not go to the altar once a week or twice a month and give an offering to your ancestors or to your deities or to whatever. It might be something like you go to midnight mass, right, on Christmas, or, maybe you participate in Lent, right, or maybe there is, a particular, I don't know, Orisha is coming through. I don't know if there's an Orisha, that's obviously not my neck of the woods, I'm just hearing it come through that you owe offerings to, perhaps. Like, and again, Apollo, because of his association with the sun, it makes me feel like it's like a yearly thing, almost like a solar return. It's like once a year you go to Hades and you make your offering, or like once a year you go to church and you do the thing, or once a year you do something big for the ancestors and you leave it on the altar. Like, so it's just like a reminder, like if you're due for that, like just make sure you stay on top of it. Again, right now when it comes to the mechanisms of your actual life, because I also think that's very much your focus right now, or like it's just sort of the practical, how do I want to phrase that? It doesn't even matter how I phrase it. Just like the practical details of your life are taking precedence. So it's easy to forget and fall off of your spiritual like rituals, especially if, again, it doesn't feel like now is the time where they're like the most important, let's say. But with that said, some of you are due in one way or another, like to give an offering or an acknowledgement or to do some kind of spiritual practice. For some of you, it's a purification. Like once a year you go to church and you take communion and like you are purified through that. Or like once a year, I don't know, they're saying the den, you go into the den. That's interesting. The mother's den or the lion's den or something, and you purify yourself. It's like a once a year thing. It might be, I don't know, a Gregorian calendar. I don't know. Now, we have the cupcake that fell out for you in reverse. It also fell out upside down. This for me, one, it does feel like it is an acknowledgement of like, yes, now maybe is a time to like tighten the belt. Yes, maybe now is a time for a little bit more discipline. Now is a time to maybe be watching like the treats, right? It's during a holiday season when you're usually strapped for cash, you're busier than you normally are, and you have all of these extra chores and tasks and duties and gifts and all this mental energy, right? Just like a lot of stuff going on. It can make it easy to want to like treat yourself like a little bit extra, right? And the next thing you know, those little treats, like they add up, not just in your budget, but they add up like in your belly too, or, you know, in your bloodstream. And so, and as I said that, it's funny, it fell over. So there might be something here about just thinking about like, one, if there are areas where you are overindulging, right? A couple too many glasses of wine, maybe a little too many puffs, a little too many treats, a little too many stops at Sephora, whatever it is you're doing, maybe pull it back. However, there might be others of you that like you actually have been like pretty good this season, and like you do have a little wiggle room to like treat yourself. And one of the other stickers that come out is one that says it's all good, which I like, because some of you are dealing, it almost just feels like you have like pervasive like health anxiety, or like just that constant fear of like, really what it is some of you have anxieties that actually require like therapy, but you can't afford it. That's essentially what it comes in, is Lauren, they have anxieties that they probably need like more help than probably I can offer you, but they can't afford it. And so here we are, you know? And so it's all good is just saying like, hey, some of those crazy fears that like the brain does, like it's probably a symptom of like the stress. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, right? But it's all good to me is just saying like, hey, it's okay. Also, like, don't beat yourself up over like every little treat. Setting a standard and holding yourself to it does not mean making yourself your own jailer, right? You can find a balance. You could do that. And this golf ball, this golf ball also came out for you. One, this golf ball is, it says number 2 on it. I don't really know much about golf. And it also says Callaway. Whenever I see this golf ball, I think I maybe have talked to you about this before. It reminds me of this scene in Gilmore Girls where Richard takes Rory golfing for the first time, and he says that golf requires a combination of confidence and humility, right? And so when it comes out, or whenever I see like golf as symbolism, it always just brings me back to that line that it requires a certain amount of confidence and humility. And so I think in setting a standard for yourself, right, and holding yourself to it, I think that builds confidence in yourself. Doing it while also learning not to project and judge other people's shortcomings onto or back to them as if they probably don't already know, or as if the divine doesn't see it, right? That requires humility, knowing when you could take a little extra, when you should take the Ferris Bueller's Day Off, when you should treat yourself, right? And when you need to be a little bit more disciplined, when you need to deny yourself the instant gratification. That takes confidence and it takes humility, right? To know when to conjure, when to uplift, when to invoke, right? When to be a sorcerer. And when you just got to put on like good old fashioned elbow grease. takes confidence, and it takes humility, right? So let's see if there's anything else that wants to come out. I do have this Priestess of Light oracle that I feel sort of inclined to use. Specifically, there is a Mary Magdalene card in this deck that I believe is labeled Misunderstandings, and that was coming through visually in my channel. I don't know if it will come out, but let's see if there's something else in this oracle deck that wants to come through. By the way, on the Patreon, every single morning in our Good Morning Honey forecast, we do a tarot horoscope of the day. We do an oracle card of the day. We also do channeled crystals, channeled colors and songs. We also do the astrology of the day too for my little baby budding astrologists. What's coming out? Gorgeous. Card number 41, the Circle of Eternal Joy. Timelessness, the dance of life. So part of this is about like regeneration as well, particularly those of you that have like really high levels of like health or like financial anxieties, right? It's just the idea of, again, like look outside, look at nature. It will lose all of its leaves, just like you will lose probably all of the money in your bank account this holiday season, and it will grow back, right? So long as we tend and we steward and we are patient. And I also think just like the way the world is going, like we're noticing trends in things like accountability, sustainability, right? Being environmentally conscious. All of this brings us into a slower pace of life to be more conscious contributors of our experience and to live for ourselves, and with each other, like much more intentionally. And so I think that like these little bits of the agenda that came out for you today, they remind you of regeneration. They bring you into a slower pace. They bring you back into faith and back into a space of trust with yourself, with the divine mothers, with whatever it is that like you connect to in kind of like a deep and a special way. The Circle of Eternal Joy, it feels very much like an invitation. 41 breaks down to 5. You're invited to change. You're invited, for a lot of you, truly what it feels like is into new spiritual systems as well. A lot of you may have been noticing over the last, they're saying 4, 6, and 7, and also that number 467, that the spiritual, I want to say like the spiritual laws, or like what you can do or get away with, or what you can perform, or how certain energies work, what those spirits want. Feels like a lot of that has changed for you. You may be observing that you're entering a new spiritual ecosystem. That is a very exciting time for a practitioner because it often pre-shadows a period of deconstructing, where the way that you always experience spirituality, or the way you experienced magic in your practice, or what you could curate or create or destroy or do, it shifts and it changes what you thought, like this is how it works. It's not how it works anymore, because it also works in other different ways that you didn't comprise of. And I said there, and what verbatim comes forward is, you have never known what it is like to live beneath a spiritual ecosystem that was not also an authoritarian regime. And that's part of like what this invitation is like, would you like to, and that very much feels like a Hecate thing too, is like, would you like to learn another way to do this? Would you like to see how other people are getting it done? And it actually, in a lot of ways, it feels sort of like between the folds, or like between the pages, and it almost feels as though like there is a, I don't know, almost like a graduating class of practitioners in some way that are, I don't know, going to be seeing the fruits of their labor, or going to be doing their workings or their prayers or petitions. Their spiritual work is different for a lot of you. It's shifting and it's changing. I almost see people in like canoes, like paddling themselves forward, like kind of under the radar, like a cloak, being cloaked in some way, but it's cloaked by the mothers, cloaked by the feminines. And they're showing me big goose wings, or like almost like chickens, how chickens like sit on their eggs, or how there's a lot of bird stuff that's coming through. What are you telling me about the Circle of Eternal Joy? If you give me the world, you're going to give me the World card. Just like, no, it's the Ten of Pentacles. It may as well be. It is the Tree of Life. So, I mean, one, I think that's a little bit a little bit on the nose, the circle of eternal joy, timelessness, the dance of life, and they quite literally give us the tree of life and the 10 of pentacles here. There's also something about a change in the way you do business. A lot of you are maybe frustrated at a lack of material progress, but you need to zoom out and recognize that you're being personally pruned for a new process to occur that moves much more quickly and much more seamlessly. So sometimes some of you might need to like zoom in and then zoom out, so that way you can understand how like spirit is molding you. There's something here about, especially from these mothers, it's like they're saying willy-nilly. We don't want you to think we do stuff just like willy-nilly. Not that we have to explain ourselves to you, is specifically how that comes forward. Not that we have to explain ourselves, but just so you know, it's like there's some process to it. It's almost like we have to deconstruct the way you used to do things, so that way we can show you how else it can be done in ways that are easier, and ways that, not that they don't require hard work, but they're easier because they actually are effective. And there's something about like it being a more peaceful process. That it's like, you know, in order to make an omelet, yeah, you have to crack a couple eggs, but how come you're always the egg that gets cracked? Don't you think that's funny? Don't you think that's strange, right? That's kind of how that comes forward. Don't you think there might be another way to get this done without so much collateral damage? Like, that's kind of, and the first place it starts is setting a new standard for yourself. That's how that comes through. Actually, I feel like I'm supposed to pull charms, and that's why. Queen of Swords. A lot of birds. Watch out for the bird people. I also heard, keep an eye on Libra. Keep an eye on Libra. So, Venus is doing something. What are you doing? Venus is doing something really interesting now. Okay, that's funny. That's really funny. Why'd you do that? I just heard, oh my goodness. Okay, I have a little, I'll show it to you. I have a little Aphrodite statue right here. I keep it right here on my desk in like a specific corner. She also has like a little bee thing in here. I said, it feels like Venus is doing something, and I heard makeovers. Makeovers, like, it's just like, and then that scene from Mrs. Doubtfire where Robin Williams is getting like his lady makeover from his brother with all like the prosthetics and stuff. Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match. That's what just like popped up in my head. I was like, that's just silly. It's just like a silly thing. Just like come in, okay. So I think Venus is what is working on perhaps like makeovers, glow ups, and like the word rebranding is coming forward as well. There's this one creator I follow, Coco Moco. I really like her a lot, and she sometimes talks about like the Hollywood haircut, and it's just the idea that sometimes people pop off like after they have like a signature thing, right? Like a really iconic signature like haircut, or like a bold lip, or like a big beard, or it's like it's your shtick, right? And so there's something here about that. I feel like Venus is like working through one, just like makeovers with people. So if you feel like divinely inspired to like change your hair or do something, maybe follow through on that. Maybe, maybe. Or if there's, again, like some kind of shtick or like a thing that is like coming more intensely up into your view, pay attention to that. Because it feels like there's something about Venus that wants to happen. And as I will show you, and as I'm sitting here and I'm going through the charms, do you see this little one on my lap? It's my pink stone, which is a Venusian energy for me, right? Little pink. That is the color of Venus. But this is a card of friendship. And so there seems to be something of like, I just don't know how to present myself, or I just don't know what to do, or almost feeling, do you know what it feels like? Almost like being like, I have the adults, or I have the body of an adult, but I still feel like an awkward adolescent, and I still don't know how to like do my hair or like dress. Like it's like that kind of feeling. And so it feels like she's like, oh, okay, I'll come in. It's like, I almost like, we were talking about failure to launch, right? So I wonder if part of that's also like, I don't feel like I look like my grown-up self, or like I don't feel like I carry myself in my grown-up self. And so I think that's part of it. And I think it goes in the imposter thing, and I think it goes into the confidence thing. And if you don't have either of those, what's the first thing that kicks up? Your ego or your depression, which makes it hard for you to be what? Humble. Right? So I now we're coming full circle here. So I think she wants to come in and help with that. Is there anything else that wants to come forward? Neutrality over what? Also, like reaching out in some way. I see this stick, and this is usually like my olive branch stick. It's about like just like reaching out, letting bygones be bygones. With the gray feather, that talks of like wanting to make that experience or the energy around it more neutralized. The way it actually, with the it's all good is sticking out to me, makes me feel like you feel, here, how do I want to phrase this? Yeah, you got to get over that. There are people that have done you wrong or poorly, and there's too much pressure that you were putting on yourself to A, forgive these people, and to B, somehow feel as though like you need to be the one to reach out, or you are mentally preparing yourself for them to reach out, and like feeling as though you're gonna have to be polite or, you know, like reciprocal in some way. And it's almost like, don't just fuck that. Fuck it. You don't need to do that. You don't need to forgive them. You don't need to answer that phone. Don't feel like you gotta reach out to people and let bygones be bygones because it's you can just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. Just fuck that feather. Just leave it alone. To hell with Thursday. Doesn't matter. Leave it alone. That's literally how it goes. Just leave it alone. Okay. Now go to the tarot. My question is, do you think we should be doing a series of mini zodiac readings? We didn't do them in November like we did the mini October readings. I'm wondering if we should maybe do some in December. It's just such a busy month this month. And this is the second week in December, I'm doing giveaways every single week for the rest of this month. So I'm slightly trepidatious to like fully commit to like all those mini readings, but maybe I will. If you want them, you'll have to let me know. We have the great! I love this, gorgeous. We have the Six of Wands, we have the Seven of Cups, and we have the Strength card. So I do see you beginning the process of coming into way more clarity, figuring out like what's fact and what's fiction, like what you actually want, and like the places that you can clearly just go access it without having to do like this whole like weird rigmarole. There's a lot of this like over the river and through the trees, and like just having to take like the most asinine way to like get to a finish line or to like accomplish a goal. It actually is like so unorganized, it like boggles my mind. And then you sitting there going, is it me? Am I wanting the wrong things? Am I going in the wrong direction? No, maybe you just have like a really shitty GPS. And so I like that the Strength card is here, because the Strength card represents maidenhood and the refinement and alchemy of self through discipline, through self-control, through harnessing and gaining control of those more primal aspects of you, which are not meant to be like whitewashed or watered down, but they are meant to come under your control. They're meant to be able to heed to you. So when you could say, no, I'm going to turn the other cheek today, right? You have the ability to do that. You have control over yourself. And also with this being a beautiful Leo energy, also knowing when to like turn it on and knowing when to turn it down, when to be about me and when to be about we, right? Have your wits about you. With the Six of Wands here, success, recognition. How do you handle that? How do you handle success? How do you operate around people who always want to say yes to you because they just want a little piece of what you got? Even if they're not bad people, right? It's like we're all trying to come up. Like everyone's trying to like, you know, survive, be it thrive even, you know? And so it's like, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that much attention? What is that much attention do to you? What is not having enough attention do to you? How does that promote confusion and pride and what, right? These are things, did anyone ask you these when you stepped on to this big fancy mission of yours? Let's get to work, right? Let's get to work. We can make this happen. That's why you have that confused energy of, I feel that this is so possible for me, and not from this weird delusional place, but from this place of knowing I am deeply capable. So what's the fucking problem here? The problem is about having the right set of instructions in the right order and being in the right place here and in your spirit, that you can actually see the forest from the trees enough to know which steps are for you and which steps are just going to take you in circles. But you're knowing that. You're learning that now. So again, our very first agenda piece really for the whole thing is if you take nothing else, set a standard for yourself and live up to it. Live up to your own hype, regardless of what people around you are doing or what they're not doing. Because in that, you will close the confidence gap. You will close the imposter gap. And most importantly, you will close the hypocrisy gap. And then no one will be ever able to say, especially not your subconscious and not the inner critic that already lives inside of you. No one, especially not you, will be able to say that you are not exactly who you claim to be, because real recognizes real, as the kids say. So that's what I have for you. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope this was entertaining. I hope that this uplifted you and your practice this week. Thank you for being here with me. Remember, your full monthly readings for December are available on the Patreon. If you want them individually, let me know. I don't have them for individual like rent right now, but if you want just like a single zodiac reading, let me know, because I can put that over on the Patreon. Make sure that you are following along here on YouTube and on Instagram specifically, so that way you, or even my email list, so that way you're staying updated for the giveaways, because we are giving away decks and books and tools and free readings, just throw in the kitchen sink at you, because I love you so much and I'm so grateful for you. It's been a hard fucking year for me, and so it's gotta be a hard year for you. And I think we could all use a little treat from one bee to another. So make sure you're following me in all the places you got to be following me. And I am available for readings for this season. You can book an observer session in the description below. I love you so much. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.